Amazing story. Humble cleaner speaks French. Billionaire revealed what the manager did next. Clara moved silently through the sleek Manhattan office, her diligent hands polishing glass tables that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Each swipe of her cloth felt like a lullaby of mundanity in a world where she often felt lost and invisible. She had come from France, full of dreams for her children. Yet here she was, often overlooked by those who strode in expensive suits, discussing numbers that sent chills through her spine. To them, she was just a cleaner, a ghost that passed through gleaming halls. The tension within her was palpable. Every glance exchanged in these pristine corridors was a reminder of the barriers she faced. She carried with her not only her cleaning supplies but the weight of expectation. Her parents had taught her the virtues of hard work and respect, values she held dearly as she battled against the disdainful glances of the corporate elite. Clara dared to dream of scholarships for her children, the kind of education she had only fantasized about. But beneath her resolve simmered a constant fear. What if she could never rise above this role? That fateful afternoon, with the sun casting elongated shadows, Clara found herself meticulously dusting the glass conference room. Little did she know that she was about to cross an invisible line she never knew existed. A raucous debate erupted beyond the transparent walls. $1 million propositions hung thick like the anticipation in the air. It was Billionaire CEO James Whitman locked in discussions with a foreign investor. Mon Dieu, she whispered, instinctively leaning closer, caught between her duties and the magnetic pull of the unfolding drama. Suddenly, James dropped a critical document. Their eyes locked, his momentarily startled, hers ignited by an unfamiliar spark. For the first time, Clara could feel the precarious balance tipping. Here, she heard herself say, stepping closer, unexpected confidence flooding her veins. Let me help. The words flowed out in fluent French. The room seemed to spin. The astonishment painted across James' face mirrored her own surprise. Had she just spoken without hesitation? For a fleeting moment, she felt alive, yet lurking in the hallway, Clara's manager watched like a ravenous predator, his face an amalgam of disbelief and rising anxiety. He had always dismissed her existence, seeing her as nothing more than a cog in this corporate machine, but he understood that her eloquence, her insight, jeopardized the carefully constructed hierarchy. Every minute that passed threatened to destabilize the controls he had maintained over her life, and he would not stand for it. Just then, torn between pride and fear, Clara felt the weight of a decision pressing down on her soul. Promotion whispers floated through the air, sweet yet menacing. To embrace visibility meant possibly dismantling the very walls built around her, but facing retribution for stepping out of line was paralyzing. What if this moment of courage led only to more pain and exclusion? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her internal battle grew fiercer as Clara locked eyes with James again. Was he intrigued or simply amused by her sudden audacity? Before she could articulate her thoughts, she caught the disdainful glare of her manager, a silent threat radiating from his posture. He would not take this lightly. The tension hung heavy, a suffocating shroud that constricted her throat. Clara felt her heart race, thoughts colliding. Could she really confront the force of oppression that hung over her? Do I matter? She whispered to herself, a tremor of doubt creeping in as perspiration formed on her palms. The murmurs of respect were thunderclaps. Were they worth risking everything she had fought for? The defining choice loomed like a storm cloud, a passionate tempest of determination clawing at her insides, unraveling the neat plans she had once made. Just as the scales teetered perilously, Clara inhaled sharply, bracing for the confrontation that would determine her future. It was now or never. Would she forge ahead, or retreat back to the shadows? The unbearable weight of uncertainty clung to her, and she knew, whatever came next, life was about to change irrevocably. Clara's breath caught in her throat, time stretching and narrowing around the undeniable moment of choice. She could feel James's gaze piercing her, a blend of curiosity and challenge. With every heartbeat, uncertainty clawed at her, but faint light flickered in the depth of her hesitations, the flicker of hope, of ambition long buried underneath layers of self-doubt. "Ms. Reed, is it?" James inquired, his smooth voice breaking through the clutter of her chaotic thoughts. The way he seemed to genuinely seek to understand her rather than dismissing her felt like a thread pulling at the fabric of her concealed potential. At the same time, her manager's shadow loomed near, a dark spot against the bright promise of newfound possibilities. "Yes," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt, fighting to maintain the confidence she had summoned. "I speak French." A confession, a declaration. Lines that had once separated her from the world outside the office melted just a little. James smiled softly, curiosity twinkling in his eyes. "I could use someone bilingual on my team. I know an opportunity when I see one." For a moment, Clara stood paralyzed by the enormity of his words. A job offer, a lifeline thrown amidst the prevailing storm. But then the weight of her manager's disbelieving glare rushed back, the oppressive reminder of who she had been in this hierarchy. What if she accepted? The thought incited a torrent of anxiety. She could envision the whispers curling around her, the scornful glances. Would they humiliate her for daring to rise? Or, crushing her dreams, would they stay within their social bubble, banishing her to a position beneath contempt? "Ms. Reed, I think you have something unique to offer," James continued, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. "An insight that transcends language." His faith in her ignited an ember of hope, but Clara felt her fears douse it, smothering the warmth of possibility. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass wall, the woman who had spent years hiding in the shadows as though she could remain invisible forever. "Mr. Whitman," she said, drawing in a shaky breath, feeling the sudden need to ground herself in her reality as she faced potential change. "I'm not sure what I have to offer beyond my cleaning duties." His expression shifted slightly, as if he found her modesty disarming instead of off-putting. "You have the insight that comes from life experience, Clara. You've seen things this company hasn't. We need that perspective." The sincerity in his voice resonated within her, pushing against the heavy armor of insecurity she had worn for so long. "But what if I fail? If I take this step, if it doesn't work out, it could shatter everything." The words burst forth before she could hold them back, as raw fears festered in the open air. "Or it could change everything for the better," he replied, unwavering. "You have to make the choice for yourself. To find clarity in your path." She turned back to face the conference room, now an arena for her ambition or her retreat. The pristine glass walls felt suddenly suffocating, reflecting the struggles she faced, but beyond that reflection, they also offered clarity. A chance to know whether Clara could become more than a whisper in the hallways. With her heart pounding, she took a step toward James, firmly grasping the reins of her destiny. "Then I accept," she declared, the words trembling on her tongue yet steadier than she had expected. "I want to take that step." The tension in the air shifted palpably, but the first sign of pleasure flashed across James's face, replacing the cautious gaze with encouragement. As relief washed over her, Clara's gaze grazed past her manager's scowling visage, the power he wielded suddenly feeling diminished. The walls around her had begun to crack, a latent energy surging through her veins with every passing second. She was ready to embrace this new chapter, and yet, with that excitement came a gnawing understanding this was just the beginning. She had not faced her biggest challenge yet, feeling the weight of impending conflict. Clara wondered what awaited her on this winding trajectory toward self-discovery. The past shadowed her steps, but perhaps the future was finally ready to welcome her. The moment of truth lingered on the horizon, and with a heart both heavy and soaring, Clara prepared for the fight that awaited her. What lengths would she have to go to defend her newfound aspirations? Clara's first day on James's team felt surreal, a stark transition from the hum of her previous duties to the energized chatter of the conference room. The air buzzed with ideas and possibility, and as she took a seat at the edge of the oval table, Clara couldn't shake the sensation of being an imposter among a sea of polished professionals. "Welcome to the team, Clara," James said, his voice filled with warmth. "We're excited for the fresh perspective you'll bring." The enthusiasm in his tone reinforced her choice but simultaneously deepened the fear gnawing at her confidence. Could she rise to the occasion or would she merely reinforce the echoes of inadequacy? As the meeting unfolded, Clara's heart raced with every mention of multilingual projects and international partnerships. Each statement spun a web of potential that seemed simultaneously enticing and suffocating. They needed her language skills, her unique viewpoint, but doubts whispered relentlessly, urging her to retreat back into the shadows she had spent years inhabiting. "Clara?" James's voice cut through her thoughts as he turned to her. "What's your take on this?" Her pulse quickened. All eyes shifted toward her, anticipating her input. She opened her mouth, but the words tangled in her throat like unwound yarn. I think leveraging French in our strategy would help us connect with specific markets." The sentence felt fragile, yet the moment hung on its significance. "Exactly," James nodded. "We can't overlook the French-speaking demographic. Your experience working in service gives you insights we don't have." The acknowledgement felt like a warm ember against the chill of her self-doubt. Clara found herself leaning into the table, encouraged by his unwavering belief in her. With every subsequent meeting, however, the initial thrill began to fray at the edges. The more Clara contributed, the louder her manager's lingering disapproval echoed in the recesses of her mind. It felt like a dark cloud following her. Each dismissive comment from him stung sharper than the last, an ever-present reminder of the hierarchical change she had long battled against. One afternoon, as the team gathered to brainstorm new marketing strategies, Clara raised her hand again, emboldened by a flicker of courage. "What if we went for an interactive social media campaign targeting French-speaking youth?" The proposal drew mixed reactions, some members nodding while others frowned, wary of its effectiveness. "Too niche," her manager interjected, the disapproval palpable. "We have bigger demographics to consider." His derision chilled her enthusiasm, and for a moment, Clara wrestled with the impulse to withdraw. But then, Clara made a choice to confront the lingering insecurities. After the meeting, she sought out James's office, heart hammering in her chest. "James, can we talk?" His eyes brightened, inviting her into his space. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Clara hesitated, feeling small. "I sometimes wonder if I'm on the right path. I don't want to be an outsider." The vulnerability in her voice startled her, but the release felt cathartic. James leaned back, thoughtful. "You're not an outsider, you're here for a reason. Don't let anyone dim your light. Challenge them with your ideas." Fueled by newfound resolve, Clara realized she didn't have to silently accept marginalization. A wave of determination washed over her. She was better than the dismissive shadows of the past. She had a unique voice cultivated through experience, and it was time she made it heard. As her confidence grew, so did the tension in her relationship with her manager. Would he challenge her at every turn? As she prepared for another round of meetings, Clara formulated a plan. She would not crumble beneath his scrutiny. Instead, she would rise. Days turned into weeks, and Clara found herself anticipating confrontation, waiting for opportunities to assert her insights. Yet, with every small victory came a sense of dread, an impending reckoning. She had stepped onto a tightrope, but how long before she lost her balance? The possibilities seemed endless, but the looming specter of her manager's contempt haunted her creativity and resolve. The time was drawing near for her to confront him directly. Would she have the support of James, or would she be left to battle the shadow of her past alone? As Clara looked into the mirror that morning, she wondered if she had the strength to continue moving forward, to fight for her place. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but resolute, she could feel the tide beginning to shift beneath her. What awaited her at the next confrontation? The moment to rise was close, but so was the potential for more profound conflict. Clara woke up with a sense of purpose laced with trepidation. The mirror reflected a duality within her. While she was fueled by ambition, an undercurrent of fear threatened to pull her under. As she donned her crisp blouse, a small but significant gesture of professional readiness, she replayed James's earlier encouragement in her mind. Today was the day she would confront her manager, and there would be no retreat. Arriving at the office, the familiar scent of brewing coffee mingled with the sharp notes of anticipation. Clara could hear the hum of conversations in the conference room, but instead of her typical apprehension, a fire began kindling in her chest. It was time to assert her value beyond the shadows of unacknowledged potential. The day's first meeting revolved around revising the campaign strategy. Clara remained alert, her senses honed to the discussions swirling around her. Every inch of the space felt electric, charged with energy and self-doubt. As her manager outlined his plans, dismissing innovative suggestions from others with a curt shake of his head, Clara's grip tightened around the edge of her notepad. James pitched a bold idea aimed at enlisting user-generated content for the social media campaign. "What do you think, Clara? Would it align with our goals?" His support acted as a lifebuoy in this sea of uncertainty. She inhaled deeply, aware that this was her moment. "I believe engaging with our audience directly could foster community sense," Clara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "By highlighting stories from our French-speaking customers, we create a relatable narrative that resonates." Her manager's eyes flicked in her direction, skepticism evident. "That's a fine line, Clara. Stories are subjective. Not all narratives will work within our scope." The edge in his tone, sharp as a knife, struck her. Clara's heart raced. Their eyes were upon her again, moments like this congregating all her insecurities. Instead of deflating, she felt resolve hardening. She was not just a cog in this machine. What if we established guidelines that can steer the narrative, ensuring brand integrity while allowing genuine voices to emerge? The silence drew tight, all ears poised on her next words. Surprised glances shot around the room, revealing budding curiosity. Clara felt a surprising warmth bloom within her, bolstered by the collective attention. "I appreciate your perspective, Clara," James interjected, "and I think you make an excellent point. We could test it with smaller case studies before full implementation." Her manager offered a slight grimace, clearly perturbed by the shift in direction Clara had catalyzed. "We need to maintain a focus on broader markets, not singular narratives." The undertone of his rebuttal held an almost possessive ownership over the ideas expressed, but Clara refused to be silenced or pushed aside. "I understand that, but what if we're missing the opportunity to deepen our connection? It is not merely about numbers, it's about creating loyalty and authenticity based on shared experiences." The energy within the room shifted slightly, as if many were suddenly willing her to succeed. Behind her, James's approving nod ignited a spark of validation. Clara found her voice strengthening, fear beginning to dissipate into determination. Moments later, the meeting adjourned, but a lingering tension remained. Clara could feel it resonating beneath her skin, the realization that she had confronted something larger than her manager's dismissals. She had confronted the remnants of self-doubt forged through countless years of invalidation. Stepping out, she overheard snippets of conversation around her. "Clara has some intriguing ideas. I never saw this side of her." The thought ignited a thrilling sense of achievement within her, but as she approached her desk, Clara spotted her manager lingering nearby, puckering his lips into a thin line of displeasure. His displeasure simmered beneath a superficial calm. She could almost taste the storm brewing. An impending clash, she knew, was inevitable. The fight to establish her presence was only just beginning. Would she be able to maintain her momentum against his onslaught? Steeling herself, Clara resolved to embrace the impending conflict. She would not allow the shadows of her past to manipulate her future. As she sat, reviewing her notes, one question morphed into a striking clarity: was she ready to face a confrontation that could determine her trajectory within the company? The moment to assert herself again was nearing, but the stakes were undeniably higher than before. The thick air of unresolved tension filled her lungs, as the battle lines were drawn. Would she emerge victorious, or would her previous fears morph into undeniable realities? Clara's fingers grazed the edges of her notes, thoughts swirling unbidden as she grappling with the gravity of her situation. The insistence of her manager loomed larger than ever, his authority felt stifling, like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. When their gazes met, his expression hardened, a silent warning that she would face consequences for her newfound assertiveness, and yet a flicker of determination sparked within her. As her colleagues dispersed, Clara took a deliberate breath, reminding herself of the support she had felt during the meeting. James's encouragement wrapped around her like a shield, urging her to prioritize her professional growth. Perhaps this was the moment to reshape how they all perceived her, to cement her presence within the team once and for all. Before she could second-guess her resolve, Clara approached her manager's desk with her heart pounding loudly in her ears. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady but questioning. His dismissal was immediate, an upward glance followed by a scoff. "What is there to discuss? You overstepped in there." Clara braced herself against the desk, summoning all her courage. "I was merely trying to contribute to the discussion, to bring innovative ideas to the forefront. Isn't that part of my role?" Her defenses bolstered by her earlier success, she took a small step forward, his lean frame shifted back into his chair as if her words had physically pushed him. "Yes, but innovation should align with our existing strategy. You risk delving into untested waters that could undermine our direction." Clara's pulse quickened, but instead of faltering, she pressed on. "But what if this innovation helps us connect with a demographic we've ignored? Shouldn't we be willing to adapt?" The tension in her voice hinted at the core of her professional identity, one that aspired for agency and relevance in a landscape of rote conformity. "Adaptation without clear metrics is just guesswork," he snapped. His retort cut through her hopes, but she fought hard to keep her composure. "Then let us discuss how to quantify it. Let us explore case studies, test groups. I'm eager to take the risk if it means bringing new customers to our brand." Each word hung heavy in the air, a mixture of desperation and determination. The silence that followed was stifling, tension vibrating between them like a taut string. Clara's mind raced, mentally preparing for the escalation she sensed was imminent. Yet beneath the fear, an exhilarating thought emerged. This moment was not merely a pivot, it was a challenge to her own boundaries. "Do you truly believe you can pull this off?" "You sound naive, Clara," he stated, attempting to reassert his control. There it was, a test, a potential fork in the road. Did she want to bend to his expectations, hide within the comfort of compliance, or risk her position for something greater? "I'm not looking to undermine anyone," she communicated, her heart pounding louder, "but I am tired of being a silent participant. I want to lead." The crux of her statement echoed in the sterile office, stark in its earnestness. Clara could feel it. This was a turning point, where self-doubt dared not take the lead. She was no longer some shadow flitting near the light. His surprised reaction was painted with barely concealed disdain, but Clara pressed ahead. "If you let me pilot this initiative, I'll prove that I can bring tangible growth without compromising our goals." "Be very careful with that ambition, Clara," he warned, eyes narrowing as he leaned back in his chair. "Ambition without experience can get you burned." Every nerve in her body prickled with the conflict of emotions swirling within. His warning felt more like a challenge than a threat. There was no denying that she was on precarious ground. "Good," she replied evenly. "I'd rather risk a burn than remain in the dark." The fire inside her flared, pushing back against his grip. As she stepped away from his desk, exhilaration coursed through her veins. It wasn't merely about the confrontation, this was her declaration. Clara was beginning to understand persistence meant more than simply asserting ideas. It was about embedding herself in the narrative of her workplace. With her heart still racing and determination fueling her resolve, Clara headed back to her desk. She was aware something had shifted within her. Ambition had transformed into conviction, and self-doubt became a mere afterthought. Yet in that newfound brightness also loomed the shadow of uncertainty, the price of her boldness still unclear. As the hour waned, Clara's mind swirled with strategy, each thought leading her to one lingering question: how would she navigate the fallout of this confrontation? The stakes had undeniably risen, and the next move would define whether she thrived or risked it all. The time had come to face the consequences of her rising ambition. What would her manager try next to thwart her resolve? Clara settled into her desk with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. The vibrant energy of her confrontation still buzzed in her veins, but as she contemplated her next steps, that energy began to morph into a cold uncertainty. She had thrown down the gauntlet, but now the palpable fear of potential backlash gripped her heart. It was one thing to assert herself, it was another to deal with the ramifications. Should she have been more diplomatic? Would the boldness of her approach be perceived as reckless ambition? Clara ran a hand through her hair, trying to shake off the loop of dread that threatened to cloud her clarity. Instead of succumbing to panic, she set her sights on gathering her thoughts. If she was going to navigate this maze of corporate dynamics, she needed a plan, a tangible strategy to bring her ideas to life while maintaining her credibility. After the final lingering embarrassment of facing her manager, Clara turned to her colleagues for insight and support. Gathering them together under the pretense of a casual brainstorming session, she knew the importance of building alliances. The idea was to pitch her proposal collaboratively. The best defense against her manager's looming authority would be to rally her peers behind her. Look, I know things got heated earlier. But I truly believe there's potential here to shift our direction, she started, her voice clear and assertive. I want to hear your thoughts and suggestions. I can't do this alone. Her colleagues, initially hesitant, exchanged glances, and slowly began to share their ideas. The room transformed, an atmosphere of camaraderie building around her concept. Clara noted their eagerness, there was a shared hunger for change, and she felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was a collective ambition. As discussions brewed, Clara felt emboldened by the collaborative spirit. James chimed in with constructive criticism, pointing out gaps they hadn't thought about. Instead of discouraging her, it encouraged Clara to refine her vision. In that moment, she recognized a hidden strength and ability to cultivate an environment where every voice mattered, including her own. It brought clarity and amplified her resolve. Let's break this down, Clara proposed, grabbing a whiteboard. With every idea scribbled down, she felt layers of doubt peel away. Their brainstorming session morphed into a structured strategy, an organized execution plan that included timelines, metrics for success, and a list of stakeholders they needed to address. After the session wrapped up, Clara felt invigorated, the initial fear of punishment from her manager giving way to the excitement of possibility. But as she left the meeting room, she couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that her manager would not take her newfound confidence lying down. Conflict was part of climbing the corporate ladder, and she had tapped into theirs. His disdain would boil into an ultimatum, a challenge she must prepare for. The next morning, Clara's instincts proved true. An email awaited her from her manager, requesting a meeting. She sensed the undercurrents of frustration mixed with his surprise at her initiative, and the stakes had just surged higher. Clara, can you meet with me today at 3? It read, her name emblazoned like a bold declaration amidst his curt prose. She closed her laptop, the implications of this meeting wrapping around her like chains. This would be a confrontation of their ideals, a potential battle that could reshape the course of her career. In that instant, standing between her fear of failure and the opportunity for transformative growth, Clara understood the precipice she was on. Would she emerge unscathed, or would her ambition ignite a conflict so severe that it would cast her into deeper shadows? This was not just about the initiative, it was about proving her worth in an arena overshadowed by authority. Time ticked down as she mulled over her approach. Clara's heart raced not just with anxiety, but the bubbling anticipation of what lay ahead. The moment of truth was drawing near, and her ambitions hung by a slender thread. With her breath steady, Clara realized she was poised not merely to defend herself, but to expand her horizons. What argument would she present to sway him? And would it be enough to turn the tides of their dynamic entirely? As the clock ticked closer to 3, Clara paced in her office, the weight of anxiety coiling tightly around her. Each muffled sound from the corridor felt magnified, her heartbeat sinking with the distant hum of conversation outside. The room was sterile, her belongings neatly organized, a stark contrast to the turbulence within. She caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the glass, the facade of confidence fighting the internal chaos. The impending meeting loomed large, threatening to engulf her not just in confrontation, but in potential loss of her ambition, her identity within the company, and perhaps, more crucially, her momentum. Clara's mind raced through possible scenarios. How would her manager respond to her initiative? How could she frame her proposal as a collective vision rather than a personal crusade? She needed a strategy, not just for the conversation, but for the entire landscape that was about to change. Clara took a deep breath and wrote down key points on a notepad. The structure she built around her thoughts provided some comfort as she focused on the substance of her argument. Could she leverage the colleagues' support? If she could show their backing, it might shift her manager's perspective, presenting the idea as a groundswell instead of a solitary challenge. As Clara prepared, the door swung open, and there stood her manager, a shadow that seemed to absorb the light from the room. His presence alone was an encapsulation of corporate authority, and Clara straightened herself, battling the immediate urge to shrink back. "Clara, let us go," he said flatly, gesturing for her to follow. Walking down the hall, Clara mentally steeled herself. The atmosphere felt charged, thick with the unspoken challenges of the corporate landscape. As they reached the conference room, she stepped inside, facing a large table where multiple levels of power had gathered over the years, with her manager sitting at the head. The very sight of it sent a jolt of apprehension through her. "Sit down," he commanded, and Clara felt the weight of the words echo around her. The room, with its glossy surface and muted colors, was both intimidating and unyielding. "Clara, I received some interesting feedback about your last meeting," he began, his tone sharp and accusatory. "You seem to think you can just go around me to push your agenda. Is that the kind of team player you want to be known as?" This was it. Clara faced the nexus of her journey, a point where courage collided with the authority of tradition. "I hope to be seen as someone who fosters collaboration and innovation," she responded, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I believe the team has ideas that can propel our project forward, and I wanted to ensure we harness that potential." His eyebrow raised slightly, a glimmer of surprise flickering across his features, quickly replaced by a guarded expression. "Is that so? And you think just because you rallied the team, we should adjust our entire strategic direction simply based on a brainstorming session?" "Not just any session," she pressed, "but a meeting that uncovered valuable ideas and addressed our shortcomings. I think it provides a roadmap that we can all contribute to. I'm not trying to bypass your authority, I merely want to engage everyone in this process for our collective success." The silence stretched, thick with tension. Clara's heart raced, she was stepping deeper into unfamiliar territory. Here she was, on the edge of trepidation, investing everything she had in this moment, opening herself to potential repercussions. Her manager leaned back, crossing his arms. "You're playing a dangerous game, Clara. Do you understand that?" Quiet determination surged within her. "Yes, it's a risk, but one worth taking if it means we can deliver on results that matter." The finality of her statement hung in the air, an unyielding dare she subtly issued during their thinly veiled power struggle. He studied her, an expression that held the line between misgiving and begrudging respect. Clara held her breath, feeling the pressure shift slightly in her favor, yet uncertain of what storm might still brew in the depths. Her heart was a drumbeat of possibilities, each pulse echoing the growing sense of inevitability. Would this encounter crystallize her vision into reality, or would it deepen the chasm between them? Just as the silence threatened to fracture, he leaned forward, voice low and charged with an undercurrent of challenge. "Let us say I consider your proposal. What will you do next if we agree to this path?" Clara's mind raced once more as she prepared to outline her next steps. In that critical instant, she understood more than ever the fight was not about winning over her manager, it was about solidifying her place as a leader. She opened her mouth, ready to reveal her plans, fully aware that this was just the beginning. But was it the right direction, or a gamble that might cost her more than she was willing to wager? As Clara inhaled sharply, words poised on the tip of her tongue, the gravity of her next statement weighed heavily on her shoulders. "If we agree on this new direction, I see an opportunity to not only implement the ideas generated in the session, but to create a framework for ongoing collaboration. My plan includes regular check-ins with the team to monitor progress, solicit feedback, and adapt our strategies accordingly. I'm proposing ownership at all levels, she articulated, her voice firm and infused with newfound resolve. Her manager's narrowed eyes reflected a contrast of skepticism and curiosity. Ownership? You think that will secure a successful implementation? You do realize, Clara, that leadership in this company has historically been a top-down approach, right? With each probing question, Clara felt the tight coils of anxiety loosen slightly. Each challenge posed by her manager presented a chance to reinforce her hypothesis. I understand the existing structure, but the business climate has evolved. We need to adapt, or we risk stagnation. Empowering the team could drive engagement, enhance innovation, and ultimately boost productivity. Isn't that what we want? He leaned back, arms still crossed, a gesture both defensive and contemplative. You're making quite a case. Let us say I'm willing to explore this shift. It will take considerable buy-in. Are you prepared to lead those conversations? Clara's heart raced at the prospect. This was more than just a meeting, it was an audition for the leadership role she longed for. Yes, I'm prepared. I want to initiate dialogues with each team member to ensure everyone feels heard and valued. We can devise a transparent communication plan that bridges the gaps between departments and levels of authority. Have you considered the potential backlash from those resistant to change? He scrutinized her, the intensity of his gaze forcing her to confront the reality of her aspirations. Clara paused, the reality of resistance striking a chord of doubt. Yet, she recognized the long untapped strength within her. Certainly. Peer resistance is a reality I'll face, but I believe a united purpose will ultimately quell that. I want to present this as a collective journey. People resist isolation but gravitate toward inclusion. Leading with empathy can nurture that spirit. Her manager's posture softened slightly as the prospect of change began to bloom before him. You seem more resolved than I anticipated. What if this doesn't pan out as you hope? The air thickened with unsaid words, but Clara felt a surge of clarity. Failure is a possibility, but it's inherent to innovation. If we don't take this leap, we risk losing our competitive edge. We can't make progress through fear-driven choices. He fell silent for a moment, digesting her perspective, and a flicker of recognition flared across his expression. Clara could sense the atmosphere shift as he contemplated what the future could hold. Her professional maturation was finally glowing through the cracks of her initial trepidation. It became clear to her now it wasn't merely about implementing a new strategy or navigating corporate politics. It was a pivotal moment of self-recognition, her impetus for change now coalescing with her desire to mold the company culture into one of collaboration and empowerment. All right, her manager finally conceded, though his tone held a caveat. I'll allow you to proceed, but understand this: your success will be mine. Fail, and there will be consequences. Understood, she affirmed, the burdens of expectation seamlessly transforming into communal ambition. As they walked out of the room, Clara's thoughts surged with excitement and apprehension. This chapter in her career was beginning, but uncertainties lingered in the air. She would need to balance her vision with the organization's hesitations. Was she truly ready to lead such an undertaking? With mounting anticipation, Clara understood that her moment had arrived, a chance not just to prove herself, but to shape the future of her team. Yet even as she embraced this opportunity, a looming question tickled her thoughts: could she unite a diverse group of voices into a cohesive movement? The pursuit of this answer would unravel the true fabric of her leadership. And now, as she prepared for the journey ahead, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. Clara sat at her desk, fingers steepled under her chin, an air of determination enveloping her like a shield. The approval from her manager ignited something deep within her, a blend of certainty and apprehension. The initial thrill faded as she considered the tangible steps ahead. A plan could easily stagnate without execution, and the thought of failure now had a sharper edge. Over the coming days, she immersed herself in the intricacies of her proposal. She drafted communication templates, thought through potential hurdles, and laid out the framework for accountability. As the team's concerns flashed through her mind, Clara knew she had to prepare for a range of responses. She needed to be ready not just to present ideas but to listen, to counsel, and to inspire. That Friday, she called a team meeting. The vacant conference room felt more intimidating than usual, oppressive even. Clusters of chairs sat neatly arranged, but each seemed to hold the weight of skepticism. Clara's heart pounded as she set up her notes, a battleground of mindset looming ahead. As the team filed in, she greeted them with a warm smile, noting the varied expressions that marked their faces. Curiosity clashed with skepticism, and somewhere among them, an emboldened spirit just waiting to be lit. "Thank you all for being here," Clara began, fighting against the trembling in her voice. "Today, I want us to discuss how we can work more collaboratively, embracing ownership at every level." She observed their reactions, searching for signs of engagement. "Ownership?" Chris, a veteran team member, scoffed. "That sounds great, Clara, but we're already overloaded as it is. How do you expect us to take on more responsibility?" A rush of adrenaline coursed through Clara as she confronted the challenge head-on. "I understand that time is precious, and that's why I'm suggesting we create a support structure together. If we pool our ideas and responsibilities, we can alleviate the pressure on each of us." "Sure, but what happens when it goes wrong?" Another voice chimed in. Clara recognized Zoe from marketing, her pessimism a well-known commodity. "If we fail, it will reflect on all of us." Clara took a breath, ready to engage with honesty. "I appreciate your concern. We could fail, and if that happens, we will learn. I believe it's better to fail while striving for progress than to never take a risk and remain stagnant. I want us to be a team that grows together, through successes and failures." A slight shift occurred. Clara noticed a few heads nodding. The dialogue turned lively, with others voicing their thoughts and suggestions, transforming the atmosphere from defensive to collaborative. The resistance, though palpable, began to wane. As the meeting progressed, Clara seized the opportunity to identify hidden talents within her team. Each member showcased facets of their skills she hadn't fully recognized. Discussions blossomed around creativity, analytic approaches, and even personal anecdotes that brought laughter. Clara's heart swelled with hope. A shared vision was beginning to form, but as the meeting concluded, the weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her again. Was this genuine enthusiasm or merely fleeting interest? The questions gnawed at her. Doubt began its familiar creep back into her mind. She hadn't transformed the culture yet. On her way out, she encountered her manager in the hallway, his expression unreadable. "How did it go?" he asked, his tone devoid of judgment. "I think it went well," she replied, a hint of uncertainty lacing her voice. "But I can sense there's a long way to go. Don't let your misgivings hold you back. Remember, every leader faces challenges. It's how you adapt that defines you." His words resonated, awakening a deeper resolve within her. Later that evening, Clara sat alone in her apartment, contemplating the strides made and the hurdles to come. The road ahead was daunting, and the potential for internal opposition loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. Yet, a flicker of determination sparked inside her. She began drafting a follow-up to her team, outlining the next steps and celebrating their initial contributions. As she put pen to paper, a realization settled in: an absolute truth. Leadership wasn't merely about guiding a group, it was about reinforcing a culture of trust and willingness to embrace change. Clara felt the pulse of her vision beat strong, but amidst this burgeoning confidence, the looming specter of individual doubt drew closer. What if she couldn't maintain that momentum? What if the team ultimately resisted rather than embraced her ideas? Clara set her pen down, uncertainty swirling within her like a storm. Only one conclusion felt certain: the stakes were about to rise even higher. Could she rise to meet them, or would she falter when her strongest tests arrived? Clara stepped into the glossy boardroom for what felt like an eternity. The bright, artificial lights flickered a harsh welcome, contrasting sharply with the vibrant energy she had amassed over these past weeks. Today was critical. She would present her initiative to not just her team, but to the entire executive board, including her dismissive manager. From between the trepidation-fueled thoughts hovered one resounding truth: this was her moment to shine. As she arranged her notes before the assembled executives, Clara recalled the timid woman she once was, crafting polished tables instead of innovative strategies. A flash of self-doubt lingered in her mind: would they take her seriously? But as she caught a glimpse of the reflection in the boardroom's sleek surface, a new version of herself emerged, a confident, driven individual ready to confront everything her past had signified. "Thank you all for being here today," Clara began, grounding her voice with authority. "I want to share ideas on how we can innovate our operational strategies to enhance engagement with French-speaking markets." James's approving nod from the other end of the table provided an anchor amidst the storm of scrutiny. Clara spoke clearly and fluently, illuminating the potential of her proposal while weaving in data points from customer feedback and market analysis. Each statistic she presented reinforced her position. Behind every figure lay stories waiting to unfold. As she navigated the complexities of her plan, the initial skepticism from her colleagues began to dissipate, melting into curiosity and intrigue. She sensed their shifting mindset, a collective energy forming from the dynamic discussions they had nurtured in previous meetings. Yet, lurking in the back of her mind was her manager, watching with hawkish intensity. Poised to strike. Halfway through her presentation, he interjected. "Clara, your ideas are ambitious, but the practical implications seem far-fetched. You must consider where our primary revenues come from." Flames of indignation ignited. Where once she would have shrunk back, Clara felt her growth kick in. "With all due respect, our primary revenues stem from existing practices. Isn't the point of innovation to expand beyond what we've always done? If we ignore the potential of diverse markets, including the French-speaking audiences, we risk stagnation." The boardroom air crackled with tension. Clara's heart raced, not with fear this time, but with fierce determination. It was her moment to reclaim her narrative. "Empowerment is at the core of this proposal," she continued. "By enabling our team to contribute their unique perspectives, we foster loyalty, creativity, and commitment. The future of business lies in collaboration, not hierarchy." In the subsequent silence, a flicker of respect rippled across the faces of her peers. James interjected with a supportive tone, affirming her stance and inviting others to share their insights. One by one, colleagues began to voice their interest and support for her initiative, finding common ground within Clara's bold vision. What had begun as an uphill battle morphed into a vibrant discussion. Her confidence felt infectious. Finally, her manager's stoic facade cracked slightly, begrudgingly accepting the wave of changemakers surrounding Clara. As the conversation unfolded, she could sense that the tide was shifting in her favor. After what felt like hours, Clara sat back in her chair, relieved. The irrefutable acknowledgement of her insight hung in the air. Reconciling her determination emerged as a solid possibility, a shared goal that everyone in the room could rally behind. "Clara, we'll implement your strategies and monitor the progress together," James announced, broadening the room for camaraderie. "Let us establish a working group to refine the details." The approval from the executive board exploded into conversations around determining next steps. Clara found herself amidst a thrum of excitement, a feeling she hadn't truly known before. The meeting rocketed to a close, and as her colleagues congratulated her, she turned to face her manager. To her surprise, there was a glimmer of respect shining through the lines on his face, as though her confrontation had earned a reluctant appreciation from him. "You handled yourself well today, Clara. Let us see how your initiative can unfold," he offered, the weight of his acknowledgement settling warmly in her chest. In the following weeks, Clara spearheaded the initiative with her growing confidence at the helm, guiding discussions around community-driven strategies, embracing risks, and engaging her teammates with clarity. Little by little, the office environment shifted as collaboration flourished, a renewal sparking excitement and motivation among her peers. As she stepped back to observe a crowded conference room brimming with enthusiasm, Clara realized she had conquered not just the barriers imposed by her manager, but the chains of self-doubt that had once shackled her. Each interaction strengthened her resolve, and by the end of the project's first quarter, early metrics indicated tangible success. At the annual company gathering, she stood before her colleagues as a featured speaker to showcase their new initiatives. She delivered her presentation with solid confidence, earning praise from colleagues and superiors alike. The accolades signaled recognition of her efforts, for she had metamorphosed into a leader who inspired rather than merely followed. With the night of celebration coming to an end, Clara felt a profound fulfillment envelop her, a sprawling sense of achievement. She had woven together her once hidden talents, galvanizing her journey filled with nerve and resilience. Consequently, Clara emerged not just as a worker but as a beacon of transformative growth. The struggle had metamorphosed her into an undeniable force in the company, and the horizon brimmed with further possibilities. Now was the time to carry this momentum forward, forging connections, leading with empathy, and believing in the power of her voice, a voice that had risen from the shadows to claim the spotlight. This is your moment. Don't wait even one more second to share this empowering story with at least 5 friends who need to see the strength in overcoming barriers. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and lift this powerful narrative to new heights. You need to subscribe immediately to be part of these exclusive emotional journeys, and comment your reactions and theories about Clara's transformative success. Your engagement is crucial.